Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Pat Flynn Show for part 2 of everything you need to know to get started with kettlebells. We are here once again with a legendary strength coach, according to Men's Health Magazine, Dan John. And Dan, it's always a joy to have you here. I received wonderful feedback about part 1, and
Good.
for people who haven't heard last week's episode, I'm going to highly encourage you go back and get caught up on that, because we're going to be building off the foundation that we previously set. I also want to bring to the gentle listener's attention the fact that we have put together a pretty extensive resources page over at chroniclesofstrength.com, where along with these episodes, there will be tutorial videos. We have some of Dan John's workshops embedded, just a lot of free supplementary resources to help you or anybody who might be interested in getting started with kettlebells. We kind of want this, I guess, to be sort of a flagship segment. So that way, anytime somebody is new or you want to return to the basics, you'll be able to go here. So, okay, part 2, Dan. Good morning to you. Cheers. And where do you want to kick this one off?
Well, I guess the thing I want the gentle listener to know first and foremost is that, when I look at equipment, basically I break a piece of equipment down almost instantly into push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded, carry, other stuff. Okay, and the thing about the barbell, I think the barbell is outstanding for the push, the squat, uh, and the hinge, the deadlift, snatch, clean, jerk. I don't think it's a very good tool for loaded carries, for example. I really don't. And I really don't think it's that good of a tool for pulls.
Mm-hmm.
I think barbell rowing can be, if it's done correctly, and then there's your $1 million point right there, done correctly. With suspension trainers, I love them for rows, and they suck for everything else. They're not very good for, and people go, well, I do. Yeah, you do a circus trick, and not everybody in the community can do that. But with kettlebells, I would say you the push, the hinge, the squat, and the loaded carry are the things kettlebells are best with.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a real fan of the kettlebell press, and that was something that impressed me when I first started using them. How much I liked them. I like the fact that weight sits way down in my forearm. I can put my fist onto my pecs when I start a press,
Mm-hmm.
and I like the way that I like the groove. And when you come to the swing and you come to the goblet squat and the double kettlebell front squat, I don't know if anything is better
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
for squatting. And then we go to loaded carries, the waiter walk, the suitcase carry, the horn walk. That's where you walk with the weight, holding the horns. The suitcase carry, rack walk. I mean, those are money. The cross walk, that's a waiter walk and a suitcase carry. Those are farmer walks, double kettlebells.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, But what can happen is that I think sometimes people fall in love with this idea that the kettlebell is a tool for every single thing. I think what it's good at, the push, the hinge, and the squat, it's unparalleled. But you still probably going to want to have a suspension trainer for T's, Y's, I's, single arm rows,
Yeah.
rows. If you want to go deadlift, you got to have a barbell. I mean, once you get to no offense, gentle listener, but I am not impressed with the 48 kilo deadlift when you pick up the beast. That's yeah. So make sure as we begin that you know how good the tool we both think it is, but we also acknowledge its limitations.
Yes, very good. So it is an extremely versatile tool, but it does have limits. I mean, one obvious limit with the kettlebell is vertical pulling. You can't really vertically pull a kettlebell,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no,
It's just so something like pull-ups, chin-ups, pull down, something like that, uh,
exactly.
is going to be needed to supplement what is an obvious limitation for kettlebell training. Now, somebody like, well, you can weight pull-ups with the kettlebell. It's, okay. I
Right.
still don't consider that a kettlebell exercise, right?
Yeah, you're doing weighted pull-ups, right? And and one of the things I really wanted to emphasize in this section this morning is that if you're doing half kneeling presses, if you're doing standing presses, if you're doing one hand seesaw presses, okay, and you're doing the swing family and the goblet squat, you're in a pretty good place with the kettlebell world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right on.
now the hands go up, and let's begin today's talk. What about? Where do we head next, Patrick?
Yeah. So last time we covered progressions to the swing and the goblet squat. You gave us so many awesome drills there, Dan. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah, just really great coaching insights that I think will help people both from a practitioner standpoint, but I hope there's a lot of coaches listening too, because I want these conversations, even though they might seem basic, because they are, hopefully they'll give you some tools you can use as you teach others kettlebells. So Dan, we could, I think there's two things I'd like to cover in this conversation. One is okay, where do we go from here? Maybe start talking programming and basic workouts, but
Sure.
also, do we want to say just a few things about the press in general? How do you lead people into the kettlebell press? Any magic secrets you have for us there?
Well, it's I like to start in my perfect world on this planet I invented. When I start the press, it's the same way I start the Turkish get up. I start them both with waiter walks, because I feel if you can't do a waiter walk, I don't necessarily want to talk to you about doing overhead presses.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you take a step, so a waiter walk is when I'm holding the handle, the weight is dangling, my hand is vertical in a finished press position. It is, and then I walk, and every step I take changes the relationship of the bell with my body. In fact, if I really get a good gait going, GAIT, a good march going, where my hips are pumping and swinging, I'm really going to be exploring that whole kinetic chain from the offside baby toe all the way up to my pinky on the bell holding. That's holding the bell. And the reason I like that so much is that exposes right there by itself most people's issues.
Sure.
Some people can't lock out. Some people can't lock out. Your bicep should be basically at your ear, and your shoulder should be down. We call it packed. So your shoulder should be down and inside. Bicep should be on the ear, and there should be a real vertical look of the body.
Right.
In fact, almost effortless. Almost all you're doing is stacking the load.
Mm-hmm.
If you're packed, you can stack. Okay. So you really want to be just stacked. And when you start to walk, it exposes all those little issues, from too much baseball when you were young, to that motorcycle accident, to the fact that you slept funny the other day.
Yeah.
Once we do that, I then like to have people put the bell in the rack position. And I used to just have people stand the rack, but now I actually have them do the rack walk too. What happens, and when you're in the rack position, I want the thumb on the pec, I want the bulk of the knuckles on the pec, the bell loosely in the hand, but that the upper and lower and the forearm are stuck against the rib cage.
Yeah. Dan, do you want to keep talking? I have a kettlebell right over here. I'll grab it and put it on camera.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Fill the airwaves if you don't mind.
So the reason I think this is important is many men, for example, this is where they get exposed. They can't bring that elbow down onto the rib cage. And as soon as my lovely model is back, he will demonstrate a correct position and then an incorrect position. And here's my model.
All right. So this will be an exclusive for the YouTube. If you're on the podcast, then you'll just have to imagine. But
imagine. So thumb on the chest, pinkies on the chest. You bring it in even more. Turn that hand and put it on the chest. See, I like it to start there, Patrick. And the reason I like that is that I'm trying to exacerbate any issues.
Right.
So what we're trying to do, if you have many men are very bad at the rack carry. Just go to any amusement park and you can see women carrying two kids around the park all day long like this. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the men will throw their kids up on their shoulders. So this exposes many men. And then now get that elbow far away from the body. Okay. That's one of the bad positions. Right. Put your thumb on your chest and bring your elbow off. Thumb on there's another one.
We call that the chicken wing.
The chicken wing. And I want that elbow.
This is weak. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work here.
Yeah. And I want that elbow right there, comfortable. And weirdly, it looks so easy the way Patrick's doing it, but this generally exposes like either things you've ignored for the last 63 plus years or an injury that you might have forgotten about.
Right.
Once I have those two, then very simply, I have the person press. And a really easy way to start people pressing is use your eyes. So will you just look at your hand? And now press the bell overhead. Just watching the bell the whole time, if you don't mind. You're probably too good.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm also in the seated wobbly chair, which is an interesting experiment.
Okay. So one of the reasons I have people watch the bell in the beginning.
What I'll do is I'll come down into the tall kneeling position. Here
Oh, that's even better. Okay. So by watching the bell on the first shoot, just watch it. Watch your hand the whole time. Is that naturally when you're watching the bell, most people pack the shoulder correctly at the top. If they're not watching the bell, very often, especially men, they'll dip that chin forward and then they'll get in that weird, not actually locked out position, that muscled out position.
Right.
For some reason, I don't know what it is about watching the bell go up. Now, there is a subtle, now be careful, it's not an Arnold press like everyone thinks Arnold did it, which he did.
Like not.
It's not that, but there is a gentle J curve going up. And every single listener probably has a different J curve. Oh, very good point Patrick is noting. You'll notice that his biceps is on his ears, and that you can see, if you just go just above the V on Villanova, you can see how his sweatshirt has that big dent right there. And that's what we're looking for. Not up, down. There you go, young man. The best way I know how to improve your press is to press. And I think if you want to learn how to press, you should probably plan up to 5 days a week doing a pressing variation. This probably is going to go, I don't want to go too far in, but when you're first learning the press, I think there's great value in doing standing presses, what Patrick just did on both knees, what we call the tall kneeling position, and then the half kneeling, that's when you're down on one knee. I also think there's value when you're first learning to press to sit down on something. We sit down on our hip thrust bench, and or you can use any bench. Be careful with chairs, folks. Chairs aren't always strong enough to hold your body weight and a big
Especially
bell.
this swivel chair. That was
The swivel chair, or yeah. And the reason I like to play with different positions is good pressers naturally grab the ground with their toes and squeeze the dirt in. Good pressers lock out their knees, they squeeze their quads, they squeeze their glutes, their ab wall is tight, their lats help the lift. A one-hand press is a full body movement done correctly.
Yeah.
Done poorly, it's a shoulder lift. And if you do them poorly enough, that poor shoulder is gonna have some pain that will remind you that it's a full body lift. Okay, go add to that, Patrick.
Yeah, no. Well, there you go, gentle watchers. That's the only modeling I'm going to do during this episode. But all those points are great, right? So I think the nice thing about the kneeling variations and leading in with those, and Dan, this is something I've got from you, is it sort of makes you just automatically turn things on, because I think people can get a little obsessive with like the tensing and squeezing drills.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That they forget, like, that isn't a very natural way to move. The point of the tensing and the squeezing is to get the things to turn on that should be turned on and activated, but then to hopefully eventually not think about it, right?
Right.
And
right.
then the tall kneeling and the kneeling variations really just especially for the core, the kind of like deep inner core stabilizers, it just gets all that stuff going. And it helps you to find that, for me anyways, that kind of like tensiony sweet spot. That's kind of what we're after, right? Because too much tension can be an issue as well. Even if you might want to do some tension drills at the beginning, too much tension can be counterproductive at points. And then certainly not enough tension also poses issues as well. So it's kind of like the Goldilocks amount of tension that we're after.
Is
right?
the Goldilocks. The Goldilocks, Coach Goldilocks shows up again. Yes, yes. You know, at the certs, and I may have done it with you guys, very often I'll take a very heavy bell and bleed off all the tension. I'll shake if I'm pressing with my right hand, I'll wiggle my left fingers, I'll loose limb my left side, I'll relax my hips and slide them, and I'll consciously loosen my feet and legs up and make a press. And one of the first things you notice is that I can still make the press because I'm strong enough with that bell to make the press.
Yeah.
But what you'll look at as I press, you'll see my hips rolling in a direction because without the tension, my body wiggles downward.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to get across is, A, I'm really strong. That's the most important thing. But B, I'm trying to show them that this is a tool to teach raising tension and raising arousal as appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna, if I'm pressing a 4 kilo bell, I'm not gonna really need to lock it down.
Right.
But when I get into the 40s, 44, 48, I
Mm-hmm.
need to start to lock. If I haven't been practicing locking things down, it's too late.
Yes.
Like it's like when you go into a spin for the first time in an icy road.
Mm-hmm.
If this is when you first learn how to deal with a spin, it's probably a little late.
Yeah. Right.
When's the best time to learn how to swim is before the boat starts to sink.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So tension is something it's a tool that is gonna, it's a tool that you might not appreciate yet.
Mm-hmm.
But one day when you're doing a larger load, you'll be like, okay, now I begin to see it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The
Uh,
hindsight. Very good. Mm-hmm.
I was at a workshop in Norway where someone made fun of the way we teach this, and it really kind of hurt my feelings. Actually, kind of funny to
But
think
that
about.
isn't very nice.
Well, it was because everybody knows I'm a kettlebell instructor, and I was in the front row, and I looked at, I got the point of this person, with all the, whoosh, ha, cinching up that, we do at the certs. But there's a reason we're doing that stuff, is because at certs, we are practicing modeling for being a proper instructor.
Yes.
And every time you demonstrate sloppy technique, no matter what the sloppy technique is, now I always talk about putting the bell down as a professional. I talk about respecting. I'm very good about situational awareness when I'm coaching. To me, the tension toolkit goes along with putting the weights, picking the weights up and down correctly, making sure there's nothing behind you or in front of you or walking into your sight line,
Right.
and then tension. Those are the 3 tools of safety that
Right.
it's too late when you need them.
Yeah. You know what? There's a very important, much deeper principle there. Again, I'll tie it into music because that's kind of the background that I know. In fact, I had to instill this lesson to my son yesterday. So he's got his dedicated practice piano every day for a certain amount of time,
Okay.
and I made him start his practice over because I caught him practicing the piano standing up. I'm like, what is this? You should be on the bench, right? The setup matters. So we're starting over, right? And I tend to be very strict with the way you approach things, because if you don't take the time to think these small things through at the beginning, they can lead to large issues in the end, right? That's Aristotle. We got our friend Plato here, but Aristotle says a small error in the beginning can be multiplied hugely or thousandfold in the end. And that
So,
is a principle I take very seriously, whether it comes to exercise, music, writing, you name
yeah.
it, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, every night when I was growing up, we ate dinner as a family. Whether it didn't matter if we had brothers fighting in Vietnam, or on August 28th was my 6th birthday when Martin Luther King was speaking. We sat down with silverware and plates and ate dinner as a family. And when my daughters were growing up, every night, no matter what was going on, even with the crazy sports section, well, we did our best to eat dinner as a family every night. And one of the things when people ask me about where do I get the discipline to eat vegetables, it's not the discipline to eat vegetables. It's the fact that I eat dinner with my family
Yes.
every night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a gentle listener, maybe you have a different thing going on, but the point here is, if you want to eat dinner and have vegetables and talk to your children and raise good kids and have a relationship with your spouse, the evening meal has to be ritualized. When you want to play the piano, you have to ritualize it. When you want to be safe in the weight room, rituals begin to show up.
Right. And part of it is because, especially for the physical stuff, and this is what I explained to Roan. Roan is my son. Is the mechanics matter and your posture matters. And when you change that, you're changing the mechanics, and then you're starting to ingrain a habit that is counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve. So, for him, he's young. He doesn't get this stuff. So like when, mean old dad comes in, like I do take the time to explain to him why this is important. and why it matters. So same thing, when the way you approach a kettlebell, the way you set up for an exercise matters, because if you don't do it properly, it can affect everything downstream from there.
You're starting off a football game, you're going to kick off. You have to take a timeout because you only have 10 or 9 guys on the field. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. And I use that because that would be such a, if that happened in a professional football game, it would be a big deal. And yet what we're saying is the same thing. The first line of Dune, Frank Herbert's a great book. In the beginning, balances are so important. I'm paraphrasing it poorly, but the very first line of Dune talks about starting things right in the beginning. So, this person who made fun of us, the way we do things, I think missed the big point. I know this is, for example, in the sports I coach, even American football, but I'm thinking track and field. When you're in the stadium, you are probably taking, if I'm going to throw the discus, it's probably one of 10,000 throws, 15,000 throws I will have taken that season. It's a very, very minuscule percent of the number of throws. I can't have a different windup at a track meet than I do in my training. Every time I throw in training, I should be setting up what I'm doing in the ring at the Nationals.
Right.
So the setup is very important in the press. And yeah, it will look silly when someone's locking and loading, for a 20 kilo or a 16 kilo press. But I also defend that because when it's time to really hit it, that stuff will be ingrained, and you're not going to be. It will be thoughtless execution.
Yes.
I like your music examples, but how often during a concert are you reading the music?
For me, never, because I don't play it. Nobody hires me to play concerts anymore.
But my point is,
no, actually, when I performed, I'll brag a little bit. I got a number of awards. I took first in a jazz competition in high school, and as for that, I never read the music. I memorized everything, and that was my style. Some people read music, but I memorized everything, because that's just the way that I wanted to master.
Yeah,
everything.
that's why. I love watching, like, a pianist will do like Rhapsody in Blue or something, and they don't sit down, dun 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 dun, turn the page, dun 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 dun. No, they know. And to me, everything in life, I got to tell you from the heart, when you get mad at your kids when they're 5 years old and you draw the line on some limitedly, not really that big of a deal, but you draw a hard line, what you're doing is making the wars downstream easier.
I hope so. And I make a big point of, as best I can from a parenting perspective, to explain as best I can why something matters. Right. So it's never because I say so, because I hated that when I was a kid. Right. I hated that. So I try to say, this is the way we're going to do it. And here's why this matters. And I really try to get my children to understand, yes, this is tedious. No, I know you don't want to start your practice over again, but we're going to do it. And here's why it matters. And I found that the vast majority of the time they do understand. They do get it.
You just came up with the title for your next book. Here's why it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Because boy, talk about a fun book to write. Get about 200 or 300 people to just pick a topic. Here's why it matters. Why does putting a knife, fork, and spoon out for dinner every night, why does that matter? Well, it doesn't, but it does. It just, yeah. So
that would be a fun book. That'd be very
fun. On pressing, all these things like tension and the arousal levels that you may or may not need, I can turn mine on and off now fairly easily because of the years, but
And
You
you don't need to, and you really don't need to think about it anymore. That's the point, because you already ingrained it. Like, same thing when I sit down and play about the guitar, I don't have to think through the checklist that I used to have to think through of the posture, the way I hold the pick. Like, I don't think
yes,
about any of that stuff anymore. But
exactly.
that's the point, is you want to get to this level of sort of unconscious mastery and unconscious performance. But the only way you can get there is through the conscious practice of it first. Mhm.
Yes, and there's that conscious competence, that whole
That's what I'm
four-part thing.
getting at. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so we've stopped here for a while to talk about the importance of tension in the grind movements. The grind movements for me would be kettlebells would be the press family and the squat family. The ballistics would be the swing and the snatch. Um, you could say that the Turkish get-up would be a grind. I would think that would be true. What am I
Right.
missing? Oh, the clean would be a
The
ballistic. I
clean,
apologize.
yeah.
Um, and so when you're in the grinds, part of your job is to hold tension in areas of your body that aren't moving. And that's why I usually use the word a moving plank.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
a farmer walk is a moving plank. A goblet squat is a moving plank. A press is if you think about it, as a moving plank. Um, it's going to be difficult without hands-on going too deep into the press. But if you were to be, if you were to take some of the progressions we did last time with the goblet squat and the swing hinge, and added the half kneeling press, I would almost argue you're set. That's swing, goblet squat, press. That's a pretty good training program. I
Mhm.
love the humane burpee, which is swings, goblet squats, and push-ups.
Mhm.
People keep saying to me, well, why aren't you doing half kneeling presses? Because it doesn't flow. And
Mhm.
sometimes flows. So we often just do presses separately in our training program.
Mhm.
That's very common in my place. We tend to not put presses in a circuit very much in our training,
Yeah.
because I think the press is the interesting thing is
It can be an
I'll put
interruption.
yeah I'll put goblet squats in a circuit without any issues at all, and certainly if you're doing complexes, presses work well in a complex, but the load is usually kind of light. When
Mhm.
we press.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
in the same way, I would never put heavy deadlifts in a circuit or a complex,
Sure.
because
Mhm.
you'd have to. It'd be freakish to try to figure out how to set the bars up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this would be a good segue then into the now what. Let me see. Do I have no? The first Dan John book off my shelf is I was hoping it was going to be Now What, but it's Can You Go?
Ah,
Great book, by the way, if you don't have it. Okay, so now what? Okay, we've got the kind of basic exercises we've been working up to. We got the swing, we got the squat, we got the press. You gave us, maybe a general structure of how to get started with that. What would you recommend, Dan, to somebody who just wants to practice these exercises, develop some general fitness? What would that beginner program look like for you?
well, okay. So let's just say you're that's it. That you only got the one kettlebell, and you're going to have to, and you want a home training program. Well, one of the things I would do is I would have a section at the beginning of every. We're going to call it a warm up, but actually it's a general practice in the beginning. Maybe go through a few hinge regressions in the beginning. Maybe do a few minutes of goblet squats and hinge practice. Yes, it's a warm up, but it's a warm up based on the quality of movement, not just feeling warm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's real value to this. Okay, so if take one of the movements that we showed you, the stick drill, the push your butt to the wall drill, do that, practice that, and then what I would suggest after that initial hinge squat warm uppy practicey thing, then I would do something as simple as half kneeling presses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of the half kneeling press. Uh, that's when you have to, if my left knee is on the ground, I'm pressing my left hand. That's what we use here. You can go either way. And really maybe keep the reps to a total of, keep them lowish. Like I would even say, I was going to say 10, but uh, it, whatever is an appropriate 15 to 25 on each side, total reps. That's 5 sets of 5, 3 sets of 8, whatever. It can be, this is a great one. I call it up tos. So up to 25.
Mm-hmm.
So you get on your left knee and you do up to 25 reps. If the first set goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put the bell down. Next one's a little wobbly, 6, 7, put the bell down. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, put the bell down. And then you get to 25.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of, after that, you've kind of, okay, so you've done your practice, you've done some strength. Then I would do some kind of workout for the normal person, a training moment. It can be the humane burpee, which is 15 swings, 5 goblet squats, 5 push-ups, 15 swings, 4 goblet squats, 4 push-ups, 15 swings, 3, 3, 15, 2, 2,
Yeah,
15,
what a
1, 1.
great routine that is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or, and Patrick, to throw you to is, you can pull one of Patrick's complexes. Patrick's complexes are very favorable to a single bell person. The cool thing about doing complexes, now it does mean you have to learn some exercises and play around with a few things, but that's okay. Learning is fine. You could do complexes. I like complexes and I like training sessions in the middle of the workout.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've gotten hot and sweaty. To me, this is the perfect time for you to do your mobility, your work. This is time to practice those other movements. If your swing is the Bulgarian goat bag swing, this is now a good chance for you to practice some other kind of movement. And then at the end, I would take a few minutes off to lay down, to meditate, to cool down, and let your engines cool down a little bit, however you like to do it. So a practice session in the beginning, presses up to 25, a workout, a focused mobility section, and then some kind of cool down, to me is best.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you like finishers, this would be a good time to do anywhere from 75 to 500 swings if you like. I know a lot of people like to leave the gym sweaty. As you know, I'm not a big fan of that because it doesn't reflect the norms and the rules of how most people do live life. Okay.
So yeah, I love that. I love the idea of making your warm up purposeful practice, and it's also specific to what you're going to be doing too. So we at our classes at the Dragon Gym, we frequently use the stick drill, the butt to the wall drill as part of the warm up because it's preparing the specific movement pattern, the hinge that we're going to be practicing.
Yes.
Most likely, there's usually some type of hinge in the program, right? Kettlebell class, go figure. But it's reinforcing the proper patterning and technique as well. So it's just wins across the board, right? It's specific, it's purposeful, it's practice, it's teaching you something, it's reinforcing something, but it's also getting you prepared for the exercise. So I'm a big fan of that. Mm-hmm.
Let me share, if you don't mind, when people ask me about group training sessions, and gentle listener, even though if you're training by yourself, there's a few thoughts in here that might have value. So I break the clock, and clocks work best on this. Okay, so you've got 60 minutes. Okay, and the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes. So the first 15 minutes, I use a cup of coffee to symbolize what we're going to do. And that the first 15 minutes of a group session, that's when you I love having name tags on people at a group session. In my perfect world, I would have everybody comes in, the first thing to do, write their name, Dan, stick it to their chest. Because in group sessions, when you're coaching, it is so hard to remember people's names while you're doing multiple things. Mm-hmm. In that first 15 minutes, I would say, I would do what Jeff Hemingway does. He does that thing, what's your name? And then he asks him, what's your favorite breakfast cereal or something like that. And in that first 15 minutes, Patrick, you show, okay, so today, here's the exercise we're going to do. These are the 5 exercises we're going to do. These are the 6 exercises we're going to do. And at this station here, we hinge and everybody practices the hinge. In this station here, we're going to squat. We practice the squat. And then the workout is the 30 for 30 for 30 template, where you go 30 seconds of a push, 30 seconds rest, 30 seconds of a hinge, 30 seconds rest, 30 seconds of a squat, pull, 30 seconds of this. and you have maybe 5 or 6 stations with regressions at every station if you're good enough to pull this off. And I think it's easy to do. Once you do it once, it's easy.
Yeah.
So during the 30 for 30 for 30, all you do is cue, stay tall, go. Nice work, Patrick. There is no coaching unless something's egregious and whatever the word is. And you have to stop for safety reasons. At the end of that 30, so you're 45 minutes in, then I give everybody a dental floss stick because they should floss their teeth. And while they're flossing their teeth, then I coach the movements. Okay, here's the mistake Patrick was making on the swing. Can you all see that? Now everyone's just sitting there. So they want to listen. They're finally able to hear the coaching insights. And then in a few minutes of questions, if we're done with the coaching, then I would have a list of maybe 40 different topics. Today, I want to talk about sleep hygiene a little bit. How important it is to keep the room dark, keep the room cool. Sleep, folks, you got to sleep 8 hours a day. You don't have to watch TV. Please don't watch TV in bed. Don't, blah, blah, blah. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
So for me, that is a perfect kettlebell workout.
Yeah. That is very cool stuff. And I love all of it. You're getting at, Dan, I think part of the art of coaching, right? Because it's one thing to have a program that's effective. It's another thing to have a program that is efficient. It's hard to have both, but it is, I think, the mark of a great coach where you can have effectiveness, efficiency, and engagement, the 3 E's that I talk about.
Yeah.
And the engagement often gets left out. Like, look, if your classes are boring, right? If the way you structure it, you gotta, for better or worse, people are coming into a group class because they want a certain dynamic about it. And they want some type of community experience that we have to, I don't want to get too much into this in this conversation because we're kind of just focused on the basic of kettlebells, but I think this is basic, at least for coaches. Make sure that our programming is also engaging. And the 30 for 30 for 30 is great because it works well in a really good group format. Of course, you can do it by yourself as well.
Sure.
If friends are limited. And it's just fun. It's just a fun thing to do. It's easily scalable, like you said, so you can have kind of different experience levels and you have regressions on the ready. It's like, okay, if you're smoked with swings right now or swings aren't your thing today, great, we can do the Bulgarians or what have you at this station. So it's good because people can kind of choose their own adventure or difficulty level. So everyone's kind of moving, everyone's kind of having fun, everyone's engaged, everyone is part of the community. But it also allows for a range of ability levels, which is often key, right? Because this is something that trips coaches up is, okay, you've got 10 to 15 people in a class that are veterans, they're feeling good, but then you have 2 total newcomers come in, right?
And they have to be able to go with the flow.
Right. So what are you going to do, right? Are you going to be a loser and isolate those people? No, that's what losers do. You incorporate them and you show that you've got the coaching skills to accommodate that, right?
So one of the things I've done, and this is what I do with the groups I work with when I travel. So I'm going to just give you an example of how you can scale this up. So here's what the workout would be. So the first 30 seconds, everybody in the group does the push-up position plank. So it's just a plank, okay? And then you rest for 30 seconds. Everyone picks up their belt. This is the foundation. And after 30 seconds, then we swing. Okay, 30-second rest. And then after that, we do 30-second rest. And then we do the bottom position and just sit there in the goblet squat. 30-second rest, swing. 30-second rest, the hip thrust, the glute bridge. We just sit there in the glute bridge. Boy, that sounds easy, doesn't it? Oh, that sounds so easy. It's brutal.
Yeah. Especially if you're coming off of 30 seconds of a set of good hard swings. Trust me.
30-second rest, more swings. 30-second rest, march in place with the kettlebell in your left hand. 30-second rest, march in place. Check that. March in place, kettlebell with left hand. 30-second rest, swing, rest, march in place, right hand. Repeat. Now, how do we scale that up? Well, Pat, this is too easy for me. Okay, you'll do push-ups for the 30 seconds. You'll do goblet squats for the 30 seconds. You'll do Bulgarian goat bag swings instead of glute bridge. You'll do, or swing, the march in place, suitcase style, march in place, waiter walk style.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just did, by the way, you can get, I think you get through 3 loops of that, and it comes to well over 300 swings in 30
Yeah,
minutes.
so the swing is the pedal point. You keep returning to the swing every other set. I love that style of routine. Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen is you just had a full body workout. Now you got someone who's never done this before, fine. Their swing is the touch the wall drill. By the way, they're going to have a hard time pooping the next day because their hammy is going to be so sore. It's just doing touch the wall that many reps. It could be the Bulgarian, it can be the RDL, it can be the on the hip thrust on the ground. By the way, one of the hardest ones we've ever did. In fact, I might even have a video of it. We decided to do hip thrust for the 30 seconds, but it was getting up off the ground that many times because you have to do it for the glute bridge. It was exhausting. So you can make a very simple workout with the most basic of tools. Pardon me, gentle listener, here's a workout for you. Half kneeling, left arm press, 30 seconds, rest. Half kneeling, right arm press, 30 seconds, rest. Swing, 30 seconds. Goblet squats, 30 seconds. And then number 5, what are we missing here? Not much. See, now you got me.
Throw in a carry. How about a carry?
Throw in a carry. Okay. Basic carry, the horn carry, walk, march in place, carrying it by the horns.
Yeah. Remember the heartbeat carry is kind of a good one too, right?
Heartbeat carry is brutal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you just keep doing that 30 for 30. You're going to run through that like, I don't know, probably 6+ times. Mm-hmm. It's going to be brutal.
And keep it basic. So often people just overthink these things. Yeah. I mean, you just sketch it out on the fly. Now you're improvising off of years of coaching experience, so that needs to be said. But at the same time is the time structure of the 30 seconds is good too, because again, people can kind of select their own difficulty. People who are feeling good, maybe they'll push for the full 30 seconds. If somebody needs to add a little bit of rest, okay, there's room to do that. So I like that, especially in a group format, because it kind of keeps everyone organized. Whereas if you just have specific sets and reps, it can get quite disjointed. Right,
Patrick, I wasn't a very good coach until I started working with 120 people at once.
Yeah. What did that for me was working in college at the YMCA, because I would have to work with massive groups of people across incredible age ranges and abilities. And I'm like, if there's ever been a creative challenge for a coach, it's here. And so, a lot of smiles looking back in the time, but there is a lot of value in that, right? Because the Y was just completely indiscriminate. Anybody could hop in my class at any time. They were huge. I often didn't even have enough equipment, right? So I had to improvise with a very limited set of kettlebells with a very large group of people. But I'll tell you what, it made me a much better coach because it put me in situations where I had to be creative and figure out solutions to tough problems.
In my mentor coaching tree, I won't mention them by name. They are what I would call a sniper coach. They can only, they're one shot. Mm-hmm. In fact, I've been with them in groups of 100 where their name brought people in, and they selected one person for the whole day to coach. 99 other people standing around watching them coach one person. And of course, no one will ever come back to that. But that's what happens. Until you learn to step back and try to, and you really do want to coach. I think I've told you this story before when my friend Tony Martin he became a beautician. So we went up, Eric Subin and I went up one day to see him at his place. And there was a security guard there, and we're kind of hanging out because, after you see beauty school for about 8 seconds, you've seen everything. And so we're waiting for Tony to get done and to go to lunch. And the security guard said something interesting. It was a black guy. He said, a lot of the students here, if an African-American comes in, they won't cut their hair because that's not, he goes, if I was them, I would cut every single person who came in's hair. And no matter what they asked, if they want me to shave half their head, I would shave half their head. If they want blue hair, I give them blue hair. And I thought to myself at the time, that's interesting. Now I look back and it was like, God had sent him to make me a better coach, because you want to work with NBA guys, teaching them how to squat. And you want to work with a 4'10" student from another country who has been put into your strength class because there's no English requirement. And that's what the counselor thinks would be good for her. Good plan, counselor. So I'm over there teaching this poor, young lady how to snatch and clean and jerk. And all she's trying to do is figure out, what the hell is this big American want from me? But in both cases, I became a better coach.
Of course. Yeah. That is probably the ultimate challenge, is coaching somebody who doesn't want to be there, but you both have to be there.
That's good.
And I had challenge. So that wasn't typically the why, because most people, they come in your class, they want to be there. But when I was in college, I got a corporate training gig, right? So if you ever want a coaching challenge, right, you get paid by a corporation to train their employees who have really no skin in the game, because they don't pay for it, right? They don't pay for it. So they don't really want to be there, right? So they're like the worst types of clients, because they don't want to be there and they have nothing to lose. I'm not going to go into details, but a situation like that, if you can get somebody like that engaged, those are lessons. It's like swinging a cat by its tail. It's the type of lesson you can only learn the hard way through experience, right?
I don't have that one, but I have the experience of the dad who wants their son or daughter to be world class. And we get out there and they just, the kid just has no interest at all. The kid wants to, I don't know, ride BMXs with his friends, or smoke crack or whatever. But the last thing they want to do is be out in a hot,
be
sunny
world class.
day.
Yeah.
Being a world class thrower. Like I tell everybody, if you want to be world class, your dad doesn't drive you to practice. You walk. And no one tells you to go. You go. Yeah.
So the point is even if you're not a professional coach, I would argue thinking about how you would coach will be an invaluable experience. And even coaching at some point will teach you things that will make you a better practitioner in general.
Yeah.
So,
and really, gentle listener, that I think when we talk about programming with a single bell and 2 bells, 20 bells, it's really the anything you do is pretty good. And so, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And the other thing I'd warn you about, and I'll just, is take notes, keep a journal, keep trying the best you can to not make the same mistake 100 times. Write things down. The workout was planned to do this. You got halfway through it. This is a bad idea. Bail out and rally up and come back again.
That's right. You can refine as you go. Excellent stuff. Dan, I think we've put together a very fine, and by we, I mean mostly you, introductory series here on everything people need to get started.
Let me, what I'll do is I will send you in almost instantly, maybe, geez, they came right up.
Perfect.
KB Kettlebell. I will send you a couple of kettlebell workouts, and why don't you just stick them on, okay?
Right. So let me finish with this then. I will be putting this episode, part 2, on the same page part 1 was. The post on my website, Chronicles of Strength, is called Everything You Need to Know to Get Started with Kettlebells. You should be able to find it very easily, and it will have part 1 of this conversation, part 2, all the other resources I mentioned before, and now these additional very generous resources Dan will be sending my way. So I'll link that in the descriptions, but again, you can find it at chroniclesofstrength.com. Otherwise, I'll also link other kind of, for those who want to go deeper, and obviously you'll want to move beyond this conversation at some point. We've got some book recommendations. Dan John's Hardstyle Kettlebell Challenge is great. Any of Dan's books are great. So I'll have all those on that page as well. Dan, before we go, last a few minutes here, what's coming down at the over at Dan John University? Anything new you're cooking up that you want the listeners to be aware of?
Well, we're constant small little things lately. One thing, I have a number of big workshops coming up. So I'll probably have another workshop or two. I'm working on one called The System, and that is basically everything I've ever taught in one lecture, which should be fascinating. And by the way, Patrick, you
Can't
have
wait.
mail. You have mail. I want to say I did that for you guys over at Dragon, Jim, but I'm trying to make it a little bit clearer for help long
Awesome.
term. Okay,
Awesome. Well, I'd love to chat about that in a future episode.
absolutely. And you know what? That would be a fun day. See if I could cram my entire vision of from the moment somebody walks into when they leave. If I could do it in half an hour, I don't know if I can because it's so natural to how I do it. But I would love. That's something I'm going to work on. Okay.
It's worth a try. Dan John, thank you so much as always, and we will
Thank
chat
you,
with
Patrick.
you next week.
Looking forward to it. Love you, buddy.
See you then.